From the moment I stepped into the grand ballroom, I could feel their eyes on me. Not just the curious glances of strangers, but the sharp, judgmental stares of my own sisters, Amelia and Clara. They stood in a corner, whispering behind their champagne flutes, their expressions a familiar mix of envy and disdain. I straightened my shoulders, the silk of my borrowed gown rustling softly. I wasn't going to let them ruin this night for me. This charity gala was a rare chance to escape the suffocating atmosphere of our family home, where I was constantly reminded of my place as the youngest, the plainest, the one who wasn't supposed to shine. Look at her. I could almost hear Amelia sneer. Trying so hard to fit in. It's pathetic. Clara would nod in agreement, her gaze sweeping over my simple dress, a stark contrast to their designer creations. They had always been this way, ever since we were children. They were the swans, and I was the ugly duckling, a role they relentlessly enforced. As I navigated the glittering crowd, a man accidentally bumped into me, spilling a drop of red wine on his pristine white cuff. "Oh, I am so sorry," he said, his voice a deep, smooth baritone that sent a surprising shiver down my spine. I looked up, and my breath caught. It was him, Damien Blackwood, the city's most elusive and powerful millionaire, a man whose name was whispered in tones of awe and intimidation. His photo was often in business journals, but in person, he was even more striking. Sharp, intelligent eyes, a jawline that could cut glass, and an aura of quiet confidence that seemed to command the entire room. "It's nothing," I stammered, fumbling for a napkin. "It's my fault. I wasn't looking where I was going." He offered a small, disarming smile. "Let's call it a shared responsibility then. I'm Damien." He extended a hand, and as I took it, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between us. "I'm Lily," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. We stood there for a moment, a strange bubble of silence forming around us in the noisy ballroom. He didn't move away. Instead, he started asking me about my work as a freelance illustrator, a passion my sisters always dismissed as a silly little hobby. But Damien listened. He asked thoughtful questions, his gaze intense and focused entirely on me. For the first time all night, I felt seen. I felt interesting. The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from art to books to our shared love for obscure old films. It was surreal. The Damien Blackwood, a man who could have any woman in the room, was spending his time talking to me. When the orchestra began a slow waltz, he asked me to dance. On the dance floor, with his hand resting gently on my back, I felt like I was in a dream, but a glance over his shoulder brought me crashing back to reality. Amelia and Clara were watching, their faces masks of pure fury. The next day, the storm broke. "So, you finally did it," Amelia said, cornering me in the kitchen. "You threw yourself at Damien Blackwood. How shameless can you be, Lily?" Clara chimed in, leaning against the counter. "We saw you, clinging to him like your life depended on it. Do you really think a man like that would be interested in someone like you? He was probably just being polite, or maybe he pitied you." Their words were like daggers, each one hitting its mark. "I didn't throw myself at him," I defended, my voice trembling. "We were just talking." "Talking," Amelia laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Don't be naive. You're trying to trap him, to use him to get out of this house. We know your game, little sister, but it won't work. You'll only end up embarrassing yourself and our family." They painted a picture of me as a desperate, calculating gold digger, and the worst part was, a small, insecure part of me started to believe them. Maybe they were right. Why would Damien Blackwood be interested in me? It was absurd. Their accusations continued for days. Every time I left the house, they'd ask if I was going to stalk him. Every time my phone buzzed, they'd snatch it, looking for his name. They made my life a living hell, chipping away at the fragile confidence I had felt that night at the gala. I started to doubt my own memories. Had I been defrauded? Did I misread the situation entirely? The joy I had felt was replaced with anxiety and shame. A week later, I was at my favorite little bookstore downtown, seeking refuge among the familiar smell of old paper and ink. I was trying to lose myself in a novel when a familiar voice said my name. "Lily." I turned, and my heart leaped into my throat. It was Damien. He was dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking even more approachable than he had at the gala. "I was hoping I might find you here," he said with that same charming smile. "I remembered you said this was your favorite spot." My mind went blank. My sister's taunts echoed in my ears. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. His smile faltered. "I wanted to see you again. I enjoyed our conversation, and I was wondering if you might like to get a coffee." The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable, but the poison my sisters had fed me was potent. "I think you should leave," I said, turning away, my heart pounding with a mix of longing and fear. "I don't think it's a good idea for us to be seen together." He looked genuinely hurt and confused. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked, his voice soft. I couldn't look at him. "No. It's not you. It's complicated." I grabbed a random book and hurried to the counter, leaving him standing alone among the shelves. As I paid, I chanced to look back. He was still there, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It looked like disappointment. The moment I stepped outside, regret washed over me. I had let them win. I had pushed away the one person who had made me feel special, all because I was afraid of what my sisters would say. That evening, the doorbell rang. Amelia answered it, and a moment later, she stormed into my room, her face pale. "He's here," she hissed. "Damian Blackwood is at our door, and he's asking for you." "What did you do?" Before I could answer, Clara appeared behind her. "You have to tell him to leave. Think of the scandal." I looked from one panicked face to the other, and in that moment, something inside me snapped. I was done being their puppet. I was done living in their shadow. I walked past them, my head held high, and went to the front door. There he was, holding a single, perfect lily. "I'm sorry for showing up unannounced," he said, his gaze searching mine. "But I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation, and about how you looked when you ran out of the bookstore. I had a feeling something was wrong, and I'm not the kind of man who gives up easily on something, or someone, that matters." Behind me, my sisters were speechless. He hadn't followed me out of pity. He hadn't been trapped. He was here because he wanted to be. "My sisters," I start, my voice shaking. "They think I'm trying to use you." He glanced over my shoulder at Amelia and Clara, his expression turning cool and unreadable. Then he looked back at me, his eyes softening. "I don't care what they think," I sighed firmly. "I care what you think. And what I think is that you are one of the most genuine and fascinating people I've ever met. So, I'm going to ask you again. Lily, would you be willing to have coffee with me? We can ignore everyone else." Tears welled in my eyes. But this time they were tears of relief, of happiness. I looked back at my sisters, who were now staring at me with a new, unfamiliar emotion. Shock. They had underestimated me. More importantly, I had underestimated myself. I turned back to Damian, a real, genuine smile spreading across my face for the first time in days. "I would love that," I said, taking the flower from his hand. I stepped out of the house and closed the door behind me, leaving my sisters and their toxic world behind. As we walked away, I realized this wasn't just the beginning of a new relationship. It was the beginning of my new life. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.